So I would like to introduce Melissa Kahili-Heede. She attended UH Manoa, where she earned her BA, then a master's in library and information science from the University of Washington. And she is currently pursuing a PhD in public health, which is what brought her to Papaʻolelo, where she works part-time. She also works full-time as a librarian at JABSOM, or otherwise known as John A. Burns School of Medicine. So she has a fascination with all things data and research. She says, I have desired for some time to find a way to contribute to our Native Hawaiian community. So I'm excited to be working with Papa in ʻiwi, Hawaii. ʻiwi, Hawaii is the data and research department. She strives to learn more about our community through community-based participatory methods with the goal of working towards implementing health measures that honor Native Hawaiian ways of being and work for our Native Hawaiian communities. And one last question, Melissa, what is your favorite dessert?
Ooh. Pumpkin crunch.
Ooh, yeah. There you have it. She loves pumpkin crunch. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Melissa.
Okay, mahalo, Lisa. Let me share screen. Okay, so thanks everyone for being here. I'll go ahead. I think I'm sharing. No, I am sharing the right screen. Okay. All right. Everyone can see my screen okay? So it's Native Hawaiian Health Research. This is a bibliometric analysis. All right, I will get started. I'm gonna move my windows around. Okay, so this is just my outline. I'm more than happy to share slides with anybody who is interested in learning more. This is something that as a librarian, I always wanted to have the opportunity to do this bibliometric analysis, and I'll explain more about what that is. But yeah, so happy to talk more about this. You know, I could talk about it all day. So let's see. So bibliometrics, and there is a typo on this image, but this isn't my image. It's from Wikimedia, so like Wikipedia, one of the Wikipedia images. So I couldn't fix that typo, but it's right there, quantitative. But anyways, so you're probably wondering what bibliometrics is. And really, it's a statistical method of analyzing articles or books. So we call it output of a specified field or discipline. So it's essentially a snapshot of what's been published and the relationships between these articles, if any. And then, so for this bibliometric analysis, the focus is on Native Hawaiian and health. So I was interested in pulling articles related to all related to Native Hawaiian health. Okay. And then as I refer to the data or the data set, this is what it is. It's, you know, it's essentially, you can kind of think of a research article as having all of these little tiny discrete parts that make it a whole. So the, oops, let me go back. The titles, the authors, who cited it, the keywords that the authors assigned to their articles, all of these become little pieces that we can analyze to kind of get a bigger picture of what all of these articles look like together as a whole. And so for a little bit of background first, how many times have you done a PubMed search for Native Hawaiian or some Hawaiian related topic, and you just return this large amount of citations, and maybe just a small handful of them are actually related to Native Hawaiians. So if you did a PubMed search, today you're going to retrieve around 13,000 citations. And what we know is that the data collection methods that a lot of studies will use, and even the way that a database indexes articles, masks the extent to how much the literature is actually about Native Hawaiian health. And that happens because, we tend to group Native Hawaiians with AAPI, or in the past, Oceanic Ancestry Group. That's what PubMed would call all Pacific Islander people. And then now, of course, we use NHOPI or Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islanders. And so when I started with Papaola Lokahi, I really wanted to know, kind of going back to Eola so the Native Hawaiian Health Needs Study that was published in 1985, and then there was an update in 2019. But I was wondering, so how is the literature actually aligning with what an organization like Papaola Lokahi said, you know, what the needs that they identified, that these were the things that were important to, you know, Native Hawaiians for Native Hawaiian health. So that was kind of what led to this. So I'll overview what I guess my process was for this. So first, like thinking about my study design, I had to establish, you know, there were research questions that I'm looking at. I had to decide I had to learn actually what was the appropriate analysis for this. So this was something that I just kind of, this is my first bibliometric analysis. And so I had to do a lot of teaching myself how to figure this out. So I'm sure it's not perfect by any means. But I needed to know who's publishing. I wanted to know who's publishing research on Native Hawaiian health first. And that may seem like a simple enough question, but there's a lot. And then I wanted to know what the topics or themes that these authors are publishing on. And then I also wanted to know how these topics or themes have evolved over time. To collect my data, I had to use Web of Science core collection. This is a specific database that we use at the University of Hawaii. And so I had to use this specific database because it has the citation information. You know, you can get article information and then who cited it all in these nice, you know, nice little files. So it's that's the piece that I needed to analyze the data. Whereas if I pulled tried to pull this data from PubMed, it would have what the article is, but it wouldn't have it would be missing all of the information about who cited those articles. So anyways, the terms I searched Hawaiian or Hawaiians or Kanaka Maoli, Kanaka ʻŌiwi, or Hawaii Maoli. And so the reason I searched Hawaiian and not Native Hawaiian was because there were a large number of articles that would, you know, you'd often see, you know, a population just referred to as Hawaiian and not Native Hawaiian. So I would miss a good chunk of the research if I was only searching for Native Hawaiian. And then I tried to include some other terms. And then I limited the search to just the health specific disciplines. Sorry, I gotta move this. And then, so overall, the results from that database ended up being 3,235. And then I had to exclude, I went through it by hand, 1,319. And mostly because they were articles, non-human related. So there were a lot of articles about, you know, squids or humpback whales, you know, Hawaiian humpback whales, Hawaiian monk seal. So all of those had to be taken out. And then, so the final set for this particular study is 1,644 articles. And so for my analysis and visualization, I did my cleaning. There was a lot of data cleaning that had to be done, and that was in BiblioShiny for, it's BiblioShiny for non-coders, it's called. And this is an R package. So, and then I cleaned data with a tool called OpenRefine. And then, so the visualizations I'm showing in this presentation are here. So authors with most publications, authors that have been most cited, looking at the relationships between them, and then the themes. So that's those are the main things I'll cover. And then for interpretation part of it, and what I'm still kind of building off of is how does the existing body of research related to Native Hawaiian health actually line up with the reports such as Eola Mau and Eola Mau. Okay, so I'm going to move into talking about the results now, and I'm going to talk about the results by author first. So this image here, this is just showing annual scientific production over time. This data set is 1985 from to, current. So 2022 was when this search was ran. And then I've been updating by hand. But so we're going to look at images or visualizations for most relevant authors, and then some fields on how they're related to each other. Okay. And so I did most relevant. So because they're all relevant, but this is the terminology or the language that the software uses. It's not my favorite, but really this is relevancy based on the number of articles each of these authors has published within this data set. So Wilkins, Le Marchand, I hope I don't butcher people's name, Collinell, they, they're appearing here at the top because they've published, there's 160 of Wilkins articles within this data set. But this image is showing the top 20 most published authors within the data set. And overall, University of Hawaii authors are largely represented, that's good. That's what we want to see. And then the top 3 articles or top 3 authors in particular, they're from the UH Cancer Center. But we do have a number of other authors from the Cancer Center. There's also authors from, JABSM, of course, our own Department of Native Hawaiian Health, Dr. Kahili-Heede, and then we have Dr. Braun from Public Health. We have, I think, authors may have multiple affiliations also. But I thought what was interesting for this top 20, at least, to my knowledge, so we've got one actual Native Hawaiian author, and that's Dr. Kahili-Heede. And so this is what the these are the affiliations tied to the authors with the most publications, or within this data set, actually, these are the affiliations. So this also needed a lot of data cleaning. So this is a disaggregated institutional affiliation of what was in the data set. So at the top here, there's University of Hawaii Cancer Center, and then they have an epidemiology department, and then there was also, there's a different address they might use. So I did keep them separated, but really these are, the same institution, different departments perhaps. Office of Public Health Studies is another big contributor to this data set. And then, other authors would just list University of Hawaii at Manoa in general. And then we have JABSM listed here also. And then I left, so Department of Psychiatry had actually contributed a good number, as well as Department of Native Hawaiian Health. So some of these other JABSM articles may be affiliated with one of those departments, but authors, depending on how they choose to write their affiliations, that's what it looks like. So just keep in mind, if you are doing your own, when you write your own articles, you may want to choose to be as specific as possible with your affiliations. But so other institutions that pop up in this data set, though, are authors from University of Southern California. There's University of San Francisco. And then we also have University of Arkansas, so Pearl McElfish, she's another large contributor to the data set. University of Arkansas, I believe. Okay. And so this next image, this is called a 3 fields plot. And what this is just showing is a relationship between the most relevant authors, which is here on the left, who they're citing, so that's here in the middle, and then the themes, the main themes, or like the keywords that are being associated with those articles. So we see that what this tells me is, so we have our university, our Cancer Center authors here, and a lot of them are citing this big chunk, this Collinell article. And what that is it's the first article on the multi-ethnic cohort. So this is one of the main articles that led to a lot of the other studies that they did. And while it doesn't use the word cancer as a key word in that article, the article discusses the intention of using the data to explore cancer incidences. So it becomes, heavily cited in cancer research going forward. But you can see here all of the different articles and the keywords they use. So it kind of shows the themes that went along with these, with that particular article. And then another notable one here. So we have Marjorie Mao's article that was also being heavily cited. Okay, well, we can see that on another image. Okay. So this image, so this is called most local cited, and what this is referring to is so the authors that received the highest citations within this data set. So while on our previous image we had authors who were just who appeared the most in the data set, and our Cancer Center authors appeared at the top, and they still do in this image, but and that could be for a couple of reasons, because we saw that they cite their Colonel article. They cite other articles from their institution pretty frequently in their work because it's related. But we see more of our Native Hawaiian authors starting to appear here in the work that they're doing. So we see authors such as Marjorie Mao, and this is her review on cardiometabolic health disparities. So that's what's being cited heavily. So that's now appearing towards the top of this list here. And then we see more other Native Hawaiian authors being mentioned here. Moku Ao, Nahu'u. I'm getting over a cold, so sorry. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm going to talk about the themes that came up in these articles. Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to mute and cough. Okay, so I'm going to look at, or we're going to see visualizations that show the most frequent keywords that were used, and then the networks that they create amongst these articles. Okay, and they won't all look like this, I promise. Just this one simple kind of chart. But so this is most relevant keywords. So this is a graph of the top 20 most relevant keywords that appear in the literature. And this just shows us how frequently certain words are appearing in the data set. And, it's pretty straightforward. So terms, such as Native Hawaiians, ethnicity, Pacific Islanders, health disparities, those are at the top. So that's what a lot of these articles are hitting on in some way. And we expect to see Native Hawaiians as one of the top most relevant keywords. So that's good. So this is a little bit more interesting. This is a co-occurrence network. And this is using, it's called Keywords Plus. So these are keywords that are AI generated. So it's artificial intelligence that generates these and attaches them to the articles within the data set. As opposed to author keywords. So the author assigns those keywords to their articles. So often if when you publish your article, you have the choice of attaching your own keywords to them. So we have two different sets of keywords that we can look at, and they do actually give us very different views, or somewhat different views of this data set. So this image here, this is using the keywords that are AI generated. And what we have are 4 strong relationships. So they're represented by the blue bubbles, the red bubbles, the green, and then the purple clusters. And so the bigger the bubble, the higher the occurrence of the word within this data set. So prevalence appears very often, risk, disparities. So if we look at them kind of one by one, so risk here appearing in the blue, it is often associated with articles that are talking about, population, the multi-ethnic cohort. I'm trying to see, cancer. So a lot of these are Cancer Center articles. And then in the red, so where we see prevalence, this often, the articles talking about prevalence overall, they're often appearing with other articles that are talking about risk factors, obesity. And then here we see Native Hawaiians appearing large, body mass index. And then in the green, so this is disparities. It appears often with other articles talking about mortality or care. We see race, outcomes, trends. So I know they seem like basic keywords, but it is kind of starting to paint a picture of the types of articles we would see. And then this software lets you look at tables where you can see which articles are attached to each of these different clusters. And then in the purple, so here it's a little bit more off to the side, smaller clusters, but these are articles with talking about, so there's adolescents appearing pretty commonly. That's the bigger bubble here, but this is more often appearing with other articles that talk about mental health, substance abuse, depression. Okay. And then, so for the co-occurrence network, so this is the same type of analysis as the previous one, but this is using now the author keywords instead of the AI generated keywords. So it looks a little bit different. It's almost, maybe it's less varied when we use the author keywords. So let's see. So there are three big relationships now. So the red with Pacific Islanders, health disparities, Native Hawaiians, the blue, so there's ethnicity, epidemiology, and then obesity here in the green. So our UH Cancer Center articles are still probably the ones here appearing in the blue. And then these obesity articles here in the green, these are probably more related to other chronic conditions. So we see diabetes and other chronic conditions. Okay. And so then this article, this image, this is called a thematic map. And this is showing the thematic map shows themes in the data and their location, and it represents relationships between concepts, directionality, and the way that research may be going. So whether it's trending down, maybe we're researching it less, or maybe this is what we're researching more. So these quadrants each mean something. And then the density, how big the bubble is, and the centrality they're what's giving that direction to the research. So they all kind of represent also how well developed some of these themes are. And so based on the software I used, the themes appearing in this upper right quadrant here are considered well developed and important to the structure overall. And keep in mind, we're looking at Native Hawaiian. It is still very broad. But what's interesting here, so this blue bubble, so this is still a lot of our Cancer Center articles being represented here. So well developed, kind of central, and you could almost say that they're probably taking over this data set a little bit. Like if I took out Cancer Center articles, it would look very different. Or if you analyze just Cancer Center articles on their own, you'd get a very different picture probably. But what's interesting here coming up are the COVID articles. So COVID is appearing with other articles related to racial discrimination, ethnic disparities, and social determinants of health. So it's a smaller set of articles, but considered well developed by its placement here in that quadrant. Okay. The red bubble. So this big red bubble, it's considered a general basic theme by the software. So it also means that it's transversal. So it intersects other themes. And that makes sense because the big terms that we see here are Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, health disparities. So that's a concept related to, the rest of the articles in the data set. And then here, this lower left quadrant, So these are declining or emerging themes. And so again, it's based, because it's based on the keywords and looking at the keywords, but having not dug into which each specific article is yet, I am guessing that there's a decline in the use of terms like Asian Pacific Islander. So that would be something declining, but we tend to use this Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander term more. So something we're yeah. And then the upper left quadrant. So this represents highly developed themes, but themes considered isolated from the other areas. So there isn't a lot of cross citation going on between, say, the purple bubble and some of the others. So, and then what we have here are, so some of our substance abuse, the decolonization, or we have some of the mental health articles, so they might be a little bit isolated from, you know, say our big cancer bubbles, which makes sense if the article is about cancer. So again, there are tables that let you kind of dig into the specifics of what goes into each bubble. Okay. And then, so this image, this is called thematic evolution. And so this shows us how our topics may have evolved over time. And so these evolving themes, they show, you take time slices. So that's here, this 1985 to 99. So keywords that were popping up then, and then 2000 to 2008, 2009 to 2015, and then 2016 to 2022. And I chose these peaks, or these time slices, based on what the production of Native Hawaiian research on Native Hawaiians looked like over time. So where you might have seen peaks in research. So starting from left to right, this is, I guess, one of the interesting things to me that I see here is that incidence here branches into Native Hawaiians here. And then it goes into cancer, which is down here, this little pink one. And then from there, it will branch into, let's see, Indigenous, NHOPI, minority health. And then we see the Indigenous branch here, branching off into decolonization. So a term that we see come up in more recent years. And so, but overall, the picture that this paints for me is where I see the perspective on Native Hawaiian health and the research that's coming out in the early literature, a little bit more Western perhaps, and then we're putting more of our Native Hawaiian lens on it. And just with the occurrence of more Indigenous, and then here, this decolonization. And so for the interpretation part of this, these are I know this is a lot of text. You don't read it, but these are research recommendations from Eola Mau, the 1985 version. And I just want to draw attention broadly to what the report is asking for. So from 1985, they're looking for, or they're saying that there's a need for more investigations into etiological factors. So what's causing disease, to assess prevalence and incidence of disease. Another thing they're looking for is a focus on the level of health, knowledge, attitudes towards health services, and cultural values that affect people's ability to participate in health programs. So that's this one. They're also calling for data on health programs, how they're doing, evaluation studies here, and then just ongoing health surveillance in general. So I wanted to look at this and think about how the data that we've just looked at, how is it actually reflecting this? Are we getting the answers that we needed? So I think the etiological factors, prevalence, incidence, they've been well documented in this data set, which, you know, what's probably less obvious is the research that's related to level of health knowledge, attitudes, the utilization data, and then evaluation studies. But that's not to say that it doesn't exist, because, you know, this is just one data set, or this is my data set, and it may have been diluted a little bit by the Cancer Center articles. So if they're kind of overshadowing the entire data set, then it may be less obvious what some of those other themes could be. And then evaluation studies are also probably less likely to appear in academic literature. You know, programs are maybe doing them, but they're not publishing it in a journal. So this data, it's not going to get picked up by my database. But one of the next steps, and something that I've been working on more with Papaʻololokahi, is just diving a little bit deeper into the literature. So I think what you could probably do going forward is a more discipline specific analysis. So looking at just the articles related to medicine, or just the articles related in some way to mental health and well-being. And so overall, that's been a work in progress. So something, well, my Papaʻololokahi hat and then my librarian hat, I'm very much interested in carrying forward with. And then I've also been trying to work on quantifying we're trying to organize these articles into where they belong according to our Eola Mau report. So, which I guess so far the quantification of that is looking something like this. This might be kind of small, but what it is it's showing that most of the articles within the data set are medically related. A smaller number, a quarter of them, are more related to the mental health, wellness or behavioral aspects. A smaller set related to workforce development, and so these are the articles organized into the chapters of our Eola Mau report. So that's just kind of what this bibliometric analysis helped to accomplish for ʻIwi Hawaii. Okay, and then so of course there are limitations. So the data collection method and just this methodology overall, it misses articles that are about Native Hawaiians in context. So say there are articles from Hawaii Medical Journal, and they talk about they talk about work going on at Waianae Comprehensive. We know that Waianae Comprehensive serves a large body of Native Hawaiian population, but if they don't spell out Hawaiian within the abstract or the title somewhere, it got missed by this, by my data set or by my search. So it's just one of the drawbacks, given the amount of time and effort it takes to kind of go through each article. And then, of course, because of the way our terminology or the way that we refer to Native Hawaiians has changed over time, there's a limited view of literature from the 80s and 90s. Native Hawaiians were more often lumped in with AAPI, so Asian American Pacific Islanders. And I tried to do the search and pull the data using AAPI, and there was just too much noise, too much distortion within the data, and it was really hard to get a clear picture of what was actually related to Native Hawaiians and what was related to, say, an Asian American population. So I had to leave it out. Gotta clear my throat again. But in conclusion, I think that what this analysis showed me is that the data is aligning with Eola Mau to some extent. So we do have a large body of research that shows us, etiological factors, prevalence and incidence of disease. But I think what's even more exciting is that we see research becoming more Indigenous focused, that thematic evolution showed the shift from the shift from Native Hawaiians and cancers to concepts related to minority health, and then that higher occurrence of terms like indigenous and decolonization. So I think overall, I hope, well, I call on everyone, to amplify Native Hawaiian voices. And, when you can, we want to try to cite our Native Hawaiian authors. So something to keep in mind and something to think about. So, and we also need more Native Hawaiian authors to publish. So I want to
Ayo for that.
I want to just mahalo everyone. So thank you to Tertia. She's in and just Imi Hawaii in general, my hale there. Maoli Olama Lama Lama, and then Kim Burney, who also helped out with providing some background. Sherry Ann Daniels, of course, and then my director, my boss at JABSM, Chris Anderson, who lets me just take on these interests and run with them. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
So fascinating. Mahalo nui for sharing. So we do have a couple of questions. Did you want to go get like a sip of water before we go into Q&A?
Oh, here, I have.
Okay. So one of the questions, well, first of all, can we share your slides with our registrants?
Yes. I have a link that I can share for them.
Okay.
That way, if I update it, the updates will be in the link still.
Yay. Okay, so I'll actually include that once the recording.
Okay.
So if you can just send it to me, and then I'll probably just add another watermark just to make sure that folks know it's your information.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. And then another question we have, well, a few, is what are the names of the programs or software you use to find the frequency of terms and names, etc.? Are the same tools used to create the visuals shared on the slides, and are the tools free?
Okay. Yes. So it's called Bibliometrics. That's what I put the data into. And that is free. It's in our package. I don't know R. It's not like I can go in and code. So what it has is there's a package. It's called BiblioShiny. So if anyone's familiar with R, or what they often do is they'll do simplified versions of R. They're called Shiny. And so it's kind of you get a web interface that lets you manipulate your data, so you don't have to code in order to manipulate it. So Bibliometrics and BiblioShiny, and it's in, when I share the slides, it is here on slide, no, it's on this one. So slide 7, I believe that is. BiblioShiny, Bibliometrics. And then this tool that I use to clean the data. So if anyone ever takes on something like this, I recommend it. You do have to clean the data first though. So there's a lot of, disaggregating institution names, author names. So things get misspelled. And I did that with OpenRefine. And that's free also.
Awesome. So we got another comment. I'd love to partner for some research. A fellow doctoral student working for Kealamamo and this fellow research geek would love it, because I'll be doing one of these next term.
Yay. Okay. Did I leave my will my contact information be shared, or I can
put it in the follow-up email when we send out the recording.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. I'm curious, what is your, other than Eola what's your next project?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is, I guess this is going to, or I don't know, because Eola Mau, that's going, I think we'll be working on that until towards the end of this year. And then I don't know what my next project is.
And we definitely need to get more published Native Hawaiians. I'm all for that.
Yes.
So we'll try to push that at the Native Hawaiian Health Summit in June.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, we got another comment. What are your recommendations for terminology for people? I have heard older scholars advise to use Native Hawaiian to get accepted by journals and to increase views. However, many young scholars are pushing back on this to honor Olelo Hawaii, Hawaiian language, since Hawaiian is not a Hawaiian word. Does it really matter?
That's a good question. So I think it does matter in terms of the database and then findability, because if Native Hawaiian is going to be the term that most people are familiar with, then that's what they're going to be searching. But that doesn't mean that you can't also include the Olelo Hawaii version. So I would include both. I think it's a good way of, increasing the findability of your articles also. So in this particular data set, so the database I used, Web of Science, there are, and most journals will let you do this, you attach author keywords, so that could be where Olelo Hawaii goes, but you could also include it. The database is going to attach its own AI generated keywords. PubMed also does the same, where it attaches and indexes for most things, not for everything, but I definitely include both.
Awesome, mahalo. Oh, put both in the search change in the mesh. Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments or feedback? Okay, well, mahalo nui loa, Melissa, for spending the time with us and sharing a super, super fascinating information. Gives us another layer to think about as we're, trying to go to school and trying to, improve the health of the lahui.
Yeah.
And folks, if you are, for the next webinar, actually, we have 2 every month. It's always the second and fourth Friday of the month. And next month for February, we're actually partnering with Papa Olelo Kahi, since it is Olelo Hawaii month. So we're going to be looking for healthcare providers that Olelo and see how that impacts their delivery of health. So stay tuned for our announcements. I'd like to mahalo Kaiolu DeFries, who is my tech support today, making sure that the record button was pushed. Mahalo. And I guess we'll keep in touch. So malama ke kahi ahui ho. Take care, everybody.